Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Lloyd and welcome to No Budget Reviews, the series where we go around the country finding cars that you can buy in good condition with an MOT for under £1,000 and filming them with absolutely no money at all. So we have to use my phone, no microphones, no fancy DSLRs, nothing like that. Just good honest cars that you can buy for very little money and you can enjoy driving. Well, viewers, today is the 3rd of November. We are a couple of days short of the impending national lockdown, so I'll get my hand out of the way. This is a 1999 Rover 25 1.4 IS. This car is owned by Jude, who has supplied several Rovers for the channel, and here we are back at Cobham Village Hall, where he's presented this lovely car for me. This is a very, very early build Rover 25. We believe it was registered in November 1999 on a V plate, so it's about the same time as the press cars were coming out. This colour is, I don't know what shade it is, but I used to have a Rover 25 in this colour. Mine was a 2003, so it wasn't exactly the same as this. This has one or two differences. The first of which you can see in the door pocket. These big door pockets, actually on the later cars, had bottle holders in them, which this doesn't have. Also, the steering wheel is different. This is just the old Rover R3 200 steering wheel with a new boss in it. It's had a larger airbag in it. The earlier cars as well had these rather sort of bespoke dials. They look a bit like the sort of early 45s did as well. Later cars had white dials like mine did. And this also has a BMW stereo in it, because when this car was made, Rover was still owned by BMW. Little bit of wood trim in there, which sort of matches this really slightly tacky bit. That doesn't look too bad, but this bit, oh, that's not very nice. This is the pre-facelift dashboard as well. In 2004 there was a comprehensive facelift of the 25 and the 45, and this is the pre-facelift one. No air conditioning in this one. Mine actually did have that, but still we've got the cigarette lighter down here. Radio's basically the same position it would have been on a Rover R8 200 and 400. This, after all, with the front structure, is still a similar car to that. Still got the same sort of indicator stalk and wiper stalk that you would have found in the R3 and R8 as well. I will start her up in a second, but also we've got the 5-speed R65 manual gearbox in this car. It's only done 40,000 miles, so actually it feels quite good, but we've still got the same kind of wear as you seem to get in all R3 200s and 25s. Here are the electric window switches that I was talking about last time. We looked at Jude's R3 200, which is about a month ago now. And we've got electric mirrors in this car, so there is, I think it's a Rover 800 mirror control, from what I remember. Different door cards and a different door handle on a 25 as opposed to an R3 200. We have, shut the door a second here. We have as well got the infamous problem sometimes on these cars is the resistor fails, and then you end up with only the top 2 fan speeds. But of course, this car being, I believe, a one-owner car from new, until Jude bought it quite recently with just 40,000 miles on the clock, that's still working perfectly fine. Look in the glove box and see what we've got. Yeah, it's big enough for secret mission documents. Actually, I've got the secret mission documents in the door, so we'll just see if we can get those in. Oh, gosh, they don't actually fit. It's quite a big area, but it's not deep enough for the secret mission documents. I'm terribly sorry, viewers. That's a bit of a problem. Let's go and have a look under the bonnet. Behold the mighty K-Series. I apologise if there's a bit of wind noise today. There's not a lot I can do about that, I'm afraid. In this case, this is a 1.4 K-Series with 103 horsepower. It's actually in really, really nice condition under here. Layout looks, again, familiar to an R8 or an R3 200. Of course, the front structure under here is very, very similar to both of those cars. Not got any cam cover gasket leaks either today. I'm sure the head gasket is in fine fettle. These engines are notorious for head gasket leaks, as I say every time we film a K-Series engine Rover. But if you actually get something like a Victor Rines head gasket set, if yours is showing signs of failing, and it's not necessarily the head gasket to blame if you are losing coolant on the K-Series anyway, but if you get a Victor Rines head gasket set and you install it properly with all the little bits and pieces, and put a new timing belt in there, water pump, that sort of stuff, tensioners, you actually can make this engine last well for forever. You don't need to keep changing the head gasket or anything. Cam belt needs changing at regular intervals, they're quite sensitive to that. But yeah, for the size of the engine, it's a 1.4 litre engine, 103 horsepower. Back in the day, this car is over 20 years old now. Was pretty good, and we'll be going out on the road a little bit later, and we'll be having some fun as well. The headlamps on a 25 as opposed to a 200 were about 60% brighter. They are quite small units. Same with the HHR 400. They're quite small headlamps, so that does make sense. And I think the styling is quite successful, given this is a facelift of the R3 200. I think it looks pretty nice. The colour's a bit controversial, of course. We do have some issues up here. The roof's lacquer is sort of going a bit, and just like on so many other old cars, the sunroof has been taped up, but it's not unusual. But Duke didn't pay a huge amount of money for this car, as he never really seems to do. So we've got a bit of a dent there as well. But open up the boot, nice and easy. This boot, I actually looked up this the other day. This is over 300 litres in size, which is very, very big for a Super Mini back in 1999. Things like the Mark III Polo, which was just about to be facelifted, Ford Fiesta, things like that, nowhere near this sort of size. And you can see why initially Rover targeted the R3 200 when it came out in 1995 as a size up, and this one, of course, was actually priced properly against things like the Fiesta and the Polo. Normal kind of jack and tools and full-size spare wheel underneath there. But yeah, it's got quite a low lip on there, but that's not unusual. And of course, you can fold the seats 60/40 as well. I've actually got rear headrest in this car as well, which wasn't standard on all of them, but this being the IS model, which was the top of the range at the time, actually you did get the rear headrest, which is pretty nice. Excellent. Right, viewers, let's see if we can get in the back. Ooh, the seat doesn't slide forward if you open it like that. Ooh, we've got lumbar support on the driver's seat. That's very posh as well. Certainly doesn't feel as big as something like an Astra. Oh. Yeah, it's definitely not as big as an Astra in here, is it? This is definitely Super Mini size, despite what the marketing team claimed in 1995 when the 200 came out. Much more sensible to place it as Super Mini. You can see my knees are wedged against there, my head is against the roof. So yeah, it's not the most capacious car in the back, but compared with other ones at the time, it didn't need to be, I suppose. Compared with the Mark III Polo, Mark IV Fiesta, Mark V Fiesta, they're very similar. It's not too bad in here. We've actually got three-point seat belts in here as well, and some pocket storage there, and we've got an ashtray. Because obviously we're still in the era when people used to smoke in the back of cars. I'm not just talking about vaping. Do have adjustable height seat belts as well, just like on an R3 and an R8. It's actually sort of alright in here. And then of course that classic light, which I believe is also from an R8. Right, so here we are on this low mileage Rover 25. Driving position is a little bit weird because if you have short arms like I do, then you have to have the steering wheel virtually on your knees, which isn't the most comfortable thing. And the position of the accelerator pedal is still a little bit weird for me. It's okay at the moment. I just wouldn't want to do, you know, really long journeys in this. The change is actually all right. The throw's quite long because it is. Oh, it's an Aston Martin DB6 we've just passed. Obviously, we definitely are in Cobham, aren't we? The change is quite long, but then again, this is originally a Peugeot developed gearbox, so you'd expect that. And actually, because this is a low mileage car, the change is absolutely fine. It's the best R65 I've ever used in a 25 or a 200. When they get baggy, they get really baggy, and you can do something about that, but obviously the best thing to do is to buy a car with a decent gearbox in it, first of all. We've got the 103 brake horsepower version of the 1.4K series in this car, and it feels nice and willing, nice and urgent, which is good. Other engines available in a 25 were the 1.1 litre. It's actually a different 1.1 from in the R3 200 that developed 75 horsepower. It's actually a 16 valve version of the K series, whereas the older one I think was out of the Metro and Rover 100, and that developed less power. I think it was 60. Then we've got the 85 brake horsepower version of the 16 valve K series. Again, that's different from the old 8 valve 1.4. It's literally just got a restrictor in the throttle somewhere. Otherwise, it's identical to this 103 brake horsepower version. Above that, there was a 108 brake horsepower 1.6 litre K series. That was also available with automatic transmission. First called Steptronic and then Step Speed, because I think BMW owned the copyright to the Steptronic name, so they renamed it Step Speed. There's also a 1.8 litre K series that was available in a 25 in both 120 and 143 brake horsepower versions. The 120, or sometimes it's called a 115. I get confused about these things sometimes. That unit 1.8 also did have an automatic option. I get confused as to whether the 1.8 and 1.6 automatics were on sale at the same time. I'm not even going to go into that because I can't find reliable information about that for some reason. Then there were some diesels, but as you know, we don't talk about those on this channel, do we, sir? No, we do not. It's worth saying that the 1.8 litre engine also had a 143 brake horsepower version, which had a variable valve control VVC, and that was similar to the one out in the old 200 VI or the 200 BRM, so 143 horsepower. There was also a 160 brake horsepower version of that engine in the MGZR. So again, we're going along at about 70 on the A3 with the mounts in the way, which is just the way that it goes. The car feels pretty composed. Again, I'm not entirely sure about this throttle position. It's not my favourite really, but actually the ride is okay. It's pretty good. The 25 actually had different suspension from the R3 200, or at least the standard ones, because the 200 VI then donated its spring settings to the 25, and for the MGZR they actually had a completely different suspension setup, a bit of a firmer one. We're going to get to the roundabout in a little while, and in Jude's 214 that was quite fun to go around, so we'll see if this is any better. It should be. Yeah, it's for a car of this era, a little engine, it's reasonably quiet, but K-Series never was the quietest engine ever, and it still isn't, but that's not really a surprise. But the seat comfort's actually slightly better than I remember. It could be this is the 3-door rather than the 5-door, so the seats have a little bit more travel in them, but I don't really know. I have got adjustable lumbar actually in this car too. Gosh, another classic, 1965 Porsche 912. Maybe everyone's taking their classics out before we get locked in global pandemics for however long it is. But yeah, the gearbox is so much better than the 25 that I had. Mine was a 2003 car, and actually were some changes under the skin for that model year, or rather the middle of it. Those cars got a different electrical system, which actually is not very good. The security control unit inside is prone to failure. You can tell that whether a car's got that new system by the shape of the remote, the central locking. This has a Lucas key fob, which is the one that you want. The Petron system was a round one, and you don't want that, because if you lose one of those remotes, you've absolutely had it. You have to find one that still has its original barcode to program it to the security control system. And oh, that's good. Good steering. And the Petron ones aren't the most reliable anyway. I've heard of cars being scrapped literally because the Petron system had failed and it's too expensive to replace the entire control unit in the car and the key fobs, so the car has to be scrapped, which is a terrible shame, but just shows that things aren't necessarily better just because they're newer. The Petron system continued onto the facelift cars, and of course they look quite different actually. They've got a completely different rear end and front end and a different dashboard from these. Some people prefer the look of that. I actually quite like the look of it, but because I've had a car with a Petron security control unit, I'm not so keen on them. Another way you can tell that your 25 is fitted with one of those is actually that it has white dials as opposed to the black ones that are here. Another thing that was an engineering change, as I said, this car is the R65 Rover Peugeot co-developed gearbox. At the same time as they changed the dials and changed from the Lucas to the Petron key fob, they also changed the gearbox because BMW still owned the gearbox factory where they were making the R65 gearboxes, and they were going into the new Minis. The R50 Mini also has an R65 gearbox in it, and BMW put the prices up so high, but MG Rover decided that they didn't want to buy the gearboxes anymore, and so they went to Ford, and Ford supplied the gearboxes for them for the 1.1, 1.4, 1.6 litre petrol cars. So the car that I had, which was I think a July 2003, that had a round Petron remote and a Ford IB5 gearbox. Now the throw on the IB5 is not quite as long as this. It's out of a, I don't know, at the time would have been a Mark 6 Fiesta, and they're pretty decent gearboxes actually, but they do go floppy, and mine had done 95,000 miles, so it was a little bit floppy. So it's not, to say that the R65s are all bad and the IB5s are all good. It's not quite as simple as that, but they do tend to be a bit less floppy with similar mileage for some reason. The 1.8 cars and the diesels, they had the PG1 gearbox, which was a very, very old type of gearbox from, I think, the 1980s that Rover had for ages, and went into things like the more powerful Montegos and things, so they can well handle the power of something like a 1.8 VVC K-Series, and those continued all the way through till the end. Actually, it's been quite a pleasant little drive in this car. I'm really impressed. The previous owner has kept this in really, really nice condition, and certainly feels better to the R3 214 and the 25 that I had previously. Right viewers, it's time to look at some Rover 25 trim levels, and my gosh, there are quite a few. So when the car was launched in 1999, there was the I, the IE, the IS, the IL. I used to have a 2003 25 1.4 IL 5-door. I'll see if I can get a picture of that at some point and put it in the video. Then was the iXL, that came out in 2002, and that had a standard drivers and passengers airbag. GTI, that didn't last very long. That was really replaced by the MGZR, effectively. After the facelift in 2004, the trim levels were I, SI, SEI, SXI, and then what's called the world of leather cars came out in 2005. These were all cars with standard leather upholstery, only made for a few months because MG Rover went bankrupt in April 2005, and so we had GLI, GSI and GXI. Of course, I would recommend going for the world of leather cars because that's the sort of person that I am. Obviously, off this platform was also born the Streetwise, and if anyone does have a Streetwise that you want me to film at some point when we're not affected too much by the global pandemic, then please do get in touch, japl745@hotmail.com. There were also some special editions with the Rover 25, and these were Advantage, Advantage S, Impression, Impression S, Olympic, Olympic S. Those were, I think, made for the games in 2000. I remember there was a Commonwealth Games, I think it was in 2002, so that's when they came out. Spirit, Spirit S, Olympic Impression, and Olympic Impression S. Wow, it's just like the Rover 45, there were myriad trim levels for reasons unknown. In conclusion then, should you consider a Rover 25? Well, considering this car costs well under £1,000, and this is a pretty good example, why not? You must buy one though if you don't want to get a cramp and a very stiff clutch leg that's got a decent gearbox and clutch in it. You can adjust the cable clutch a little bit to make it easier. The biting point is quite high in this car, which is how they came out of the factory, but it does come under personal preference. The steering and handling of these is really good. It's even better than the R3 200 that we reviewed on the channel last month. They're not very expensive, as long as your K series is all sorted out, which, to be honest, by this time probably most of them have been. Then you should have many years of good service out of them. They're a relatively simple car. The parts are readily available. There's actually quite a wide choice of these still available. So yes, absolutely. Just obviously make sure you test drive one first to make sure it's suitable for you. But I don't see why this shouldn't be a good little practical runaround for a lot of people. Anyway, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to like this video, leave a comment below. As I've said before, if you wish to submit your car for no budget reviews or sensible second-hand reviews, then my email address is japl745@hotmail.com. You should see that actually about the 30-second mark at the beginning of this video. And thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching, and we'll see you again for more no budget excellence.